In this video, we're going to discuss how to go from Fusion to 3D printing. So here we go. This is a project that my makerspace did for a customer. It's actually a mold for a cake pop that somebody wanted. So that is the Ileana helmet shield with some different layers. So when you pour the mold in, it comes out as a flexible mold that you can make as like a chocolate. So we call it the cake pop helmet logo. So when I'm ready and I know that I'm finished with my entire design, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Document Settings. I'm going to make sure it's in millimeters. If it's in inches, you just click this little edit button and change it to millimeters. And you can do that at the very end. You can design the entire thing in inches and then come back to this. Why is that? Well, 3D printers, and especially the ones that we have, read in metric, not standard. So we're going to change it to millimeters. Second thing I'm going to do then is I'm just going to right click the component, or maybe it's the entire piece, and we're going to right click that and we're going to go save. It's right in the middle. It says save as mesh. It's going to create a mesh file for 3D printing. The format we're going to choose is not the first one. It's actually going to be the second one that says STL. We're going to make sure the unit type is in millimeters, and we're going to have the refinement at high. We do it at high because we want to make sure we have the best detail we can get at. And then I'm going to click OK, and we can save it. And I suggest just saving it to your downloads folder, like you see here in my downloads. I have a lot of other things that we've printed in the past, and that makes it easy to grab it then when we go online. So I already have one saved, so I'm just going to overwrite that one right now. Click Save and replace it. You can always give it make sure you give it a good name, not just component 1 or untitled, so you know exactly what it is. After I save it, I'm going to go to my 3D printer OS, and it should be your profile here. And under Files, I'm going to click Add Files, and I'm going to go ahead and add that file. It takes a second to upload, but once it does, it gives you a little preview here, and if I hover over that, it gives you even better preview, so you know it's the right file. And we're going to click Layout, so we can lay out that file. Now by laying out that file, I can move it anywhere. So I can scroll in and out using my scroll wheel and the middle mouse button on my mouse. I can orbit around using the clicking and holding the right mouse button to orbit around. Or I can move this actual part by using any one of these axes, the X, the Y, or the Z axis. If I move it out of the way, or it's somewhere where it's not supposed to be, over here is the first button I always click, and that says On Bed. It puts the bottom of it right on the bed. Now, depending on how you designed it, if you designed it differently, how do we want this to print? And so it takes a little bit of work on your end to make sure we do this right. We are on the Move tool, but you can go to Rotate. And I could actually rotate this part if I wanted to, any way I would like. And it would rotate this part, and I can get it exactly where I'd want it to be. If you design it correctly, you shouldn't have to rotate it, although sometimes we like to rotate it. I'm going to reset the rotate to get it back to the beginning, and usually it's easier to hit these keys over here. Let's say I want to rotate it so it prints like this. I'd click that and hit On Bed, and it goes ahead and it puts it on the bed. Now it might print that, but it might get kind of straggly right here because it's printing in midair. So let's instead reset that rotate and put it on the bed there. Now it lays flat on that bed. And maybe you want to look at the printer too. Sometimes the printer gets kind of worn in the middle because it prints a lot in the middle, and maybe I want to take this one and maybe put it over to the side. And I can do that. I can also make copies of that, okay, right here, copying the object, duplicates if you will, and I can just click that. Maybe I want 2, and I hit apply, and it puts 2 more. And it gives it a nice perfect spot for me. I can delete any one of those right here to get back to where I would need to. So just a few quick settings. If I click Printer, you should be able to see the printers that you have access to. and we're using either 3D40 or 3D45. The great thing is, it's just talking about the size of the printer for those two printers. So we don't need to worry about selecting either one for right now. Either one is fine because they're the exact same size printer. When I am ready, I can click Slice and start slicing. If you'd like to, you could actually just save your progress and get back to it at any time by clicking Save, or you could actually add a new object here, so there's more than one. Maybe a friend you guys want to print together, or maybe you have two objects you want to put on one print bed, and you can do that here. I'm going to click Slice, and now I'm in the slicing software. So what happens? We have this 3D modeling software, Fusion, where we model the part. This is how we created the entire thing. And then this is the slicing software. It takes that file and slices it into little layers. Okay? It's like cuts it into little tiny layers so we can print from the top or from the bottom up. So by default, you should have probably a medium quality to slicing profile, and that one should work fine. This medium quality one. And you can see some things here, and I'll explain kind of what those are here now. So let's first start with layer height. Layer height, usually it's 0.1, 0.2, or 0.3 millimeters. You can put some things in between, but those are the three common ones. By default, it's at 0.2, and so let me show you what 0.2 would look like. 0.2 means that every single layer that it's going to print is 0.2 millimeters, and so in this case, this would be 47 layers, and we can then see each layer. So I'll start with the first layer and the second layer, and as I drag this up, each layer is 0.2 millimeters every single time. So that is the layer height. Going back, the wall thickness is 0.8. That's pretty standard, but you can make it thicker, usually I make it thicker by 0.4 millimeters. So if I wanted to make it a little bit stronger on the outside, I could change that to maybe 1.2. But we're going to leave it at 0.8 for now, just as a default. That's usually just fine for the things we print, because they're usually gadgets or some things that we've created. And that means that right on the outside, that very outside that's how thick the outside is, 0.8. The outside of all of our shapes is 0.8. So it helps reduce the time a little bit, the smaller that is, but reduces the quality as well. The next thing is infill density. This is set at 18%. I think that's very reasonable, 18%. I usually use 15, but 18 is fine too, not much difference. And what that is it gives you a density of what it is inside. So we would see that that's 18%. All that density it doesn't actually print out solid. It gives you a little density of 18% of the actual material is actual material, right? There's a lot of air gaps involved, and you can kind of see that as it prints up until it gets to that surface it needs to be. It just kind of holds it strong, and there's that pattern there. Last thing is the temperature. We can leave that at 220. That's fine. And the build plate temperature at 35. That's fine as well. The adhesion probably has none selected. I like to do a skirt, and I'll show you what that is. And the last thing to do, so a skirt looks like this. It creates a couple lines around the outside quick, so you know that the printer is oozing out correctly. It's kind of a waste of material, but it does just a few lines, in this case 4 or 5 lines, really quickly, just so we know that it's level, that it's going to work, and you kind of watch your print get started that way. Another thing I like to do is go to the first layer and see if it's going to print okay on the first layer, and it looks like it's going to. All right, back to the first thing, the layer height. I did one for you at 0.2. I have another one here that's 0.3. Let's look at the 0.2 again, and it says that it's going to print in 43 minutes. If I go to 0.3 layer height, all right, it's going to print in 31 minutes, and I don't really notice any difference. And so that's something that we can kind of do. We see that 0.3 and 0.2 in this case doesn't have a difference, but the time is way different. All right, and the filament is not much different. 8.1 grams or 8.2 grams, not much difference. So maybe I'd want to print it in 0.3 because it prints a lot quicker, and especially if I'm not doing this high quality print. So when I'm ready, you will then click this green button, Slice and Toolpath Preview, and it will create the same screen that you just saw before. And on this screen, then we can see our layers, our different layer heights. And if it looks like we're ready to rock and roll, we're ready to print, then we can do that. And what we'll do is click print, and it will give us our available printers. In this case, I did a 3D40 print. So if 3D40 is one I selected, then I can select any one of the first 3 printers. If I were to select a different printer, 3D45, that will be the only one that will show up. And then you want to go to the printer, make sure it's the right color. If it's not available, if the printer is not available, somebody else is already printing on it, you will see that somebody else is already printing on it, and then you can just queue it up, basically get in line. Like you would queue up a song, maybe. We're going to queue up that print to go next after that one is done if someone's already using it. And so I will show you kind of how that looks like. So I'm going to go to maybe this second one and click queue. After I click queue, I can go to my printers, and you can actually see that that one is queued up. There's another one that's supposed to print, and then this one's queued up right behind it, so we can see the order, and you can see who actually did that as well. And so we can queue up our prints and seeing exactly what is happening with the different prints. All right, so that is a quick rundown of how we go from Fusion to 3D print and having some settings with that.